Hello, everyone, and welcome to our GP Strategies webinar. My name is Kayla Ross, Marketing Manager for GP Strategies, and I'm happy to be your host for today's event. If you've joined us before, we are very glad to have you back, and if this is your first session with us, well, a big welcome goes out to you. We have an engaging discussion planned for today on strategic career development, but before we get started with the session, I do want to cover a few housekeeping items. First, everyone's phone lines have been muted to eliminate any possible disruptions. And because we have a lot of great content to cover today in a very short amount of time, if you have a question during the presentation, we ask that you submit them through the Q&A module, and this can be found in the lower panel of WebEx. If you hit the ellipsis, it should show the Q&A. Once you click on that, then it will give you an option to enter in your question. What we'll do is we'll do our best to address these questions during the discussion if there's an appropriate pause. Otherwise, we will get to them at the end of the webinar. We encourage you to share the information that you received today with your colleagues and networks via social media. Please be sure to include the hashtag #GPWebinar or the handle @GPCorp so that we're able to follow your contribution to the conversation. And finally, the slides and recording of this event will be emailed to you in the next 48 hours, and as always, they will be available with our other great presentations on our webinar recordings page at gpstrategies.com. I would like to introduce you now to today's very qualified panel. Zach Curtis is a leadership development consultant for Blessing White, a division of GP Strategies, and his primary areas of expertise include leadership development, team effectiveness, and member employee engagement. With human needs as the starting point, he has learned to immerse the training content in language and images that resonate intuitively with the partners or the participants, while satisfying the goals of the executive stakeholders. Zach holds an MA in Social Organizational Psychology from Columbia University and has been with Blessing White since May of 2017. Kristen Bacalar heads up the talent management arm of Athena Health called Athena University, or as she puts it, the fun side of HR. She oversees a team of people who are devoted to creating a learning culture at Athena and who work tirelessly to provide opportunities for employees to better themselves and the company. She's heavily involved in all things culture, ranging from diversity and inclusion initiatives to corporate communications to employee engagement and, of course, learning and development. Marissa Guerrero is a learning and organizational development practitioner who is invested and passionate about the improvement and support of human capital. She is a leadership team member at SS&C Advent. She is also a mindfulness practitioner, yogi, and pescatarian. With all those amazing qualifications, the role in this life that she is the most grateful for is being a mother of two talented teenage humans. So, Zach, now that we know you and our panelists a little bit better, I will go ahead and turn the session over to you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kayla. I want to get quickly to our panelists. So to put this conversation in context, we know that career support is one of the strongest drivers of employee engagement, which is no surprise because at the core of your career is you. And what we do every day either fuels us or drains us. And we're each influenced by a unique set of answers to the questions, what matters to me? What am I good at? What do I enjoy doing? So every employee, ourselves included, needs support in aligning the answers to these questions with what the organization is trying to accomplish. And this is where the managers play their vital role in the career development process. It's so much more than the next raise or another promotion. Career development is about addressing some of the biggest questions we have as human beings relating to our work. So with that, I want to dive right into the conversation. And Kristen, I'm going to come to you first. I just want you to tell us a little bit about your organization and your role there.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here. Thanks for including me. So my name is Kristen Bacalar, and I head up talent development at Athena Health. Athena is a healthcare technology company based in Watertown, Watertown, Massachusetts, which is just outside of Boston, although we have offices in other places of the country and in the world. And, you know, my role is all things talent, so thinking about how to develop people, how to identify the game changers in the organization, how to provide learning opportunities and development opportunities that are relevant and help managers be better, better leaders, which is a little bit of job security there, and yeah, all the fun things of HR, as I like to call it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Marissa, over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your organization. I think you're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we sure can. Go ahead.
Fantastic. I work for SS&C Advent, which is a global fintech company with a diverse population of talent. And my role there is very simple. It's to support the humans who work for us, who work with us, and who work collaboratively together to make our company and each other successful.
Love it. Love the humans.
Love the
humans. So let's move on. So Krista, I'm going to come back to you. What made you choose to focus on career development right now at Athena Health?
Yeah, good question. We had a lot of data that suggested that we needed to focus on career development. So we had an employee engagement survey that across the board, one of the lowest scores was career development opportunities. We had a lot of exit interview data that said that people were leaving to further their career other places. They didn't feel like they had the career opportunities here. And unintentionally, I think over the 20-ish year history of the company, we have created sort of a move up or move out culture. So those three things combined made us hone in on career development now and actually make it the center point of our HR strategy.
So the first two pieces that you mentioned, that we see that all the time. I mean, that's very common across organizations, the engagement scores and exit interviews to suggest that sort of a lack of, or a perceived lack of career opportunities, why people leave. That third piece, though, that you mentioned, I'm curious about how do you think this culture of move up or move out even came to be?
Some of this is speculation on my part. I have not been here for the 20-year history. But my sense in speaking with many, many people is that it became you're doing well or you've been here X period of time, so let's promote you. And never was a deliberate approach to looking sideways in your career or thinking about lateral moves or really thinking about the holistic person who, all of us have different values and different drivers and different motivators, and so we didn't really take that into account. We sort of took into account, you're doing well, we want you to stay, here's a promotion, stay longer. And I think over time that evolved into, stay in your lane, just keep moving up. Or if you run out of space upwards, then you probably should leave the organization. Got it.
That's interesting. Marissa, over to you. What made you choose to focus on career development right now at SS&C?
Absolutely. I think that Kristen hit a lot of key points that we also see at SS&C Advent in regards to the voices through our engagement survey, conversations that you have in the hallway, or concerns that are shared by leadership team members. But to further that, I think it's also the relationship that we have with Blessing White. We've had a long-term relationship with Blessing White. And in our collaborative work that we do together, I think it's another reason that we all are collectively looking at what are the things that are going to move the people in the organization. And so, again, I would add to Kristen's comment about where they got the information, the data, but the relationships that we have, I think, are super important. And lastly, I think career development has always been a thing. I'm going to say a thing, right? It's been the thing where we always say we wanted to move up or we want to move to a different role because we're bored. I think we as humans are taking a new look at our life from a different approach, from a way of what kind of journey do I want in my life? What are the things that I truly value and my belief system, and what am I successful at? And I can't be successful at everything, so how do I move to make my journey complete for whatever piece in my life I'm at? And so it's a lot of soft skills, human work, and conversations that we're not quite used to, that I think is why we're here now.
Right. That makes sense, and I think a lot of us can identify with that across organizations, across industries. So we're gonna shift gears a little bit and press in a little bit further into some details of how this looks within your respective organization. So Kristen, back to you. If you could just briefly explain to all of us the approach to career development at Athena Health, or your approach personally as the director.
Yeah, so we're in definitely an evolutionary phase, let's call it that. So what we're trying to do is instill in our employee base that you own your career and we can help. It's sort of like the old Home Depot saying, like, you can do it, we can help. It's kind of like that. Like, you own your career, but we're here to help you. And so one of the things was we wanted to break people from thinking that it's either move up or move out. Like, there's other opportunities, there are other things you should think about and consider. So there's been a whole campaign around really trying to broaden people's perspective on what career development and career growth means. We've been trying to instill in people to really dig deep into themselves and understand what they want. Some people just want to do what they're doing and be left alone, and that's fine. Some people want more challenges. Some people just want, more time off. Like, whatever matters to them is really what career development and career growth is as in terms of the way that we think about it. The other thing that we've done is we've really embedded career into, like I said, our HR strategy overall. And the sort of equation that we are using is give, get, grow. Give plus get equals grow. So you give value. So as long as you as the employer are working on the right things and you're achieving your goals and metrics, you're contributing to our purpose, that's good. If you're getting, the get is experience. So grow your skills, find new opportunities, ask for what you want, know what you want, and that equals growth in your career. And what we've actually done is started from the end. So we've asked people to think about, what does it mean? What matters to you? And from there, then you can determine what you need to do to get experience and how best you can give value. So give, get, grow has become our HR kind of catch-all framework strategy, and it's all around that career development, and that's kind of part of our approach.
Have you seen, as part of this, I love that you own your career and we can help, have you seen this culture begin to shift? And if so, in what ways have you seen the individuals sort of taking ownership while being supported by their managers and or the organization at large?
Yes, we have seen some movement. One of my biggest challenges coming into organizational life is to have more patience because things take way longer than I want them to. So we are not seeing as much change and excitement around it as I want to, and I'm assured that what we're seeing is either normal or better than normal, and I have some data to share with the group around our success, but it's never fast enough for me. I will fully own that. But yeah, we are seeing people have more conversations with their managers. We are seeing people, people have come up to us anecdotally and say, I never really thought about my career that way. Or I went to the course, and as a result, I went and talked to my manager, and now I'm doing X, or, things like that. I wouldn't surprise me if some people have left the organization as a result of this, but I think that that's actually good. If what matters to you is not being fulfilled at this organization, my personal opinion is then find a place where it does fit, right? So there has absolutely been some adoption to this. I think people are slowly getting on board. I think people are always going to want more from their manager, and we're trying to provide that as well.
I love that, and I love that it's both. It's both. The individual is the owner. It starts really and ends with them, and they can't do it alone.
Great.
Marissa, at SS&C Advent, if you could give us an overview of your approach there, both personally, your personal philosophy, and at large, how you go about this whole thing, as you call it, of career development.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I think the simple answer to it is first a sense of awareness, right? In the voices that we're hearing about, I want career development, or recently in the 2018 LinkedIn White report, it indicated that career development is the number one thing people ask for. So awareness is the fact that we listen to the voice of the people and involve leadership. I think the second approach in that is once we've heard the voices and once we're starting to have a conversation about what that means, it's the opportunities. We have to develop opportunities for a deeper dive into career development at SS&C Advent. Because just as Kristen said, if what is not working for you here, then that's something that you need to identify, and we need to help you identify that so that we can all be successful in the things that we do. So it's around the development courses that we have, such as your career. And it goes back also to the approach of awareness. So if I'm aware that career development is something that I want in this company, or it's something that I want to explore, and then I go to a development session like your career, and it's so far different from what I thought this was going to be. I thought you were going to tell me where I should go next, what role I needed to be in. Oh, this is about me? Like I have some involvement in this? So awareness to opportunity to experience. We need to then provide the workforce experience and open doors so they can see what are the technical skills in these different roles? What are the soft skills that are needed? How do I create an awareness, and how do I dig deeper into my own involvement in this? And then how do I start to involve my leadership team members and start to have conversations so I can actually start to experience some of these things so that they can start to align with my success, my satisfaction, those kind of things.
So I love how pragmatic that approach is, sort of those three pieces of listening, providing opportunities, and then helping people figure out, okay, in a very real sense, what do I need to do? What skills do I need to ascertain, or whatever the case may be, in order to then get to where I'm trying to go? And I think that organizations, can tend to focus on just providing opportunities. But the thing that intrigues me about what you said is it starts first with listening, because you can provide all kinds of opportunities that don't necessarily meet the need. And so I'm curious, when you say you're listening to what people are saying, to the voices of your people, how exactly, in a very real sense, where are you going to get this information? Who are you asking? What kinds of questions are you asking?
Absolutely. So I think it comes first from the data, right? Any type of engagement surveys, entrance, any type of entrance or exit, any type of data that tells us, right, that's indicating that, usually through the box where you type in, right? That's the listening voice from that data approach. But I think that at SS&C Advent, especially in our Advent University training department, it's really important for us to listen to the people in which we work with. So we work with people and collaborate with people as an Advent University team with a large global audience of people. And so in those conversations, it only takes a minute or two to ask the question. It comes before that because you have to have a working body of people who trust each other to have these real conversations.
Sure.
And I think that's the initial foundational pieces that SS&C has, is the trust that they've built in their tenure of their workforce in order to have these conversations that sometimes seem a little awkward or tough, to explain to people what they really want, what they really need, and what they really want to go to next.
Right. Very powerful. Love that. Let's keep moving. So, Kristen, back to you at Athena. What are some, and you've mentioned some of these already, so what are some of the main challenges you face at Athena Health with career development?
I think in general, overarchingly, just a mindset shift. 20 years of sort of just the culture evolving in one way, and actually now starting to be really deliberate about it. Takes a while. So just a general mindset shift. I think, there's a lot of people at Athena who are really attached to a promotion, because with a promotion comes a cohort change, and with that comes more money. And so it has become the way one is recognized for good work, and so we really have to change that as well. And so it's really you're asking about career development, but it's so intertwined with performance management and leadership and comp and ben. It's all very much related. So trying to tackle all of it at the same time is a challenge in and of itself. And then the last thing I would say is just adoption. Changing the face of Athena University to be more relevant, more in the moment, more about the people and what they need. Take some time for people to buy into that and say, you know what, I'm going to give that a chance, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to sign up, and then I'm going to follow through with the assignments, and I learned something in this 2-hour course, but now I have to go do something, and people actually doing it. Those are some of the challenges.
So Marissa, when Kristen's talking about first the mindset thing, this idea of, well, to make more money, I need to be promoted, I need to move into another cohort. Is that something that sounds familiar to you at SS&C Advent, just sort of this obsession around raises and promotions?
I mean, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you heard, Zach, the onomatopoeias that were coming from my voice, but yeah, I definitely have lots of sound words that are coming from that same kind of mindset shift, you know. I think it's also the challenges that you face is your leadership and their readiness level with it, you know, having those coaching conversations around it, because as leaders, we want to have the answers for the people in which we're leading. And sometimes we don't. And so the challenges we face is that giving them, you know, the resources to feel comfortable, but also to understand that discomfort is a part of our human nature. We're supposed to feel a little discomfort in some of these conversations because that's essentially how we grow. The other challenges I would say is just change, right? So I have a great group of people who work with me, like, look at the success that we're having. And now some of these people are saying they want to move in different areas of the business. Like, what am I going to do? How is change going to be okay? So I think it's having these challenges are essential parts of the business so the business and the people can grow together.
That makes a lot of sense, and I want to press in a little bit further into the beginning piece of the whole mindset shift when we're talking about specifically when it comes to compensation and titles, because I think all 78 people on the call right now are going, yeah, that, you know, how do we actually talk about these things, and how do you begin to really help people understand that we're not just saying words. It's not just some great idea. Oh, you know, don't worry too much about the raises. You need to gain experience, and that's easy to say until someone really wants that raise or promotion. So, have you in this career development process explicitly addressed that elephant in the room, knowing that statistically, if people are given the opportunity to grow and develop, they will stick around longer? But how or in what ways have you explicitly addressed that within the career development process at SS&C Advent?
I think you're talking about something that's transparent conversation. And I think that starts with how does the business function, and SS&C Advent functions as a transparent business. We have quarterly meetings in which we're very transparent. So I think it's just addressing the elephant in the room. I also think it's having further conversations about it. Nobody likes to hear that their voice is being heard, right? Yes, I hear you that you want a promotion, or yes, I hear that you want to move into a different role, but then you have the conversation and never come back to it. I think it's really important that we continue to have the conversation, that it's a progression, it's a journey. It's not we're going to have this one conversation and change is going to happen overnight, and then the mindsets are going to shift. In my mindfulness practice, we learn how we're wired and how that mindset shift is a gradual, practical process in which we have to be kind to ourselves. So when I even moved to SS&C Advent, did I want to start in a leadership role? Well, yeah, because I was a leader at my last role. But I have to realize the mindset shift is that's ego, that's not real. Leadership is influence and impact. And so I'm doing that already as an individual contributor. And I think that that's what SS&C Advent does also very well, is that we empower our individual contributors to lead and be leaders, not necessarily having a direct report on their team. We call it at SS&C Advent, it's your move.
Nice. I like that. It's your move. And I think that this idea of what you were saying before, coming back to the conversation, because I think it can feel you can have a cynic in the room going through a career program and hearing all about all these great other ways to develop, and it can kind of sound like, are you just trying to distract me from my goals of climbing the ladder, so to speak, or moving up, or whatever the case may be? And it can feel somewhat disingenuous unless you do, as you're saying. We're not ignoring the fact that, of course, we all want to progress in a quote unquote traditional sense in terms of we want to make more money and we want to move up, whatever that might mean. So we're not denying that, but what we're saying is there's a much larger picture here. And I think you're right that you can sort of establish or continue to build that trust by coming back to that conversation and not pretending like it's not part of the larger discussion, but instead opening up the discussion. And so, Kristen, I would come back to you and say, you know, I actually got to experience Athena Health and see the culture. It is very competitive, lots and lots of very driven people. How do you explicitly address raises and promotions in the larger conversation of career development?
We've been trying to divorce the two, having them be separate. And we're doing that systematically, like we're actually separating the performance management process from the performance conversations from the monetary compensation conversations. So we're actually separating them by days and weeks. That's like phase one. We're doing things more implicitly in terms of our communications from HR and our coaching from L&D. So we're actually trying to be really deliberate about separating them so you can have career conversations and performance conversations that are totally separate from here's a merit increase and here's a bonus or here's your performance increase or whatever. So just trying to separate them. And then we've been doing talent assessments twice a year where people look at their talent and kind of designate them high potential, high performing, things like that. So really targeting some people that are on that list to hone in on some of those career conversations, again, outside of money, outside of compensation, outside of performance, like that.
Which makes a lot of sense. And not only does that help shift the mindset of the individuals that are looking for career development, but I think it also helps managers do their job better. Because if managers are trying to support career development while tying that into the thing that they feel like they have to offer or explain, which is merit-based promotion, so to speak, it can muddy the waters and it can maybe not damage, but it can keep that relationship between manager and individual contributor from being optimally effective. And in fact, there's a question that came in from a participant. How do you get managers to be effective stewards of career development and get them to do effective career coaching?
I mean, if that's direct, if I had that answer, I'd probably be much richer and have my own company or something, because I don't think anyone's totally figured that out. What we're doing, and that's like present tense, and I can't say that I will not speak from a soapbox or a position of achievement here, but what we are doing is, again, having building career conversations into our training, working with managers to have these things. When someone gets promoted, actually going out of our way to reward the manager. Like, hey, congratulations on having so-and-so get promoted, rather than only, right, the person or whatever it is, having an achievement of some sort. So trying to shift that appreciation and respect to the leadership side versus the individual contributor side. So we're working on that. We are trying to show the fact that, career development and developing the people on your team and having them move out and over and up and down and have fulfillment under your sort of guidance and mentorship and coaching is the job, right? It's not just, oh, that's another thing I have to, that's how you get the job done, not another thing you have to do as on top of your day job. So really trying to just, hone in on that and reiterate that fact over and over and over again, and then in the future reward that is kind of the angle that we're taking.
So in that vein, when you say in the future reward that, would that piece that you described as this is the job, would that become part of performance management evaluations for how managers are actually evaluated as well?
Imagine a future state where that is true. That's our vision. We're quite a ways away from that, but yeah, that's where we're trying to head slowly but surely. Is that we value leadership so much that part of your incentives, part of your compensation, part of your expectations, part of your goals in Workday, and et cetera, are around these sorts of things.
Right. So Marissa, at SS&C Advent, how does that, how do these questions sort of emerge and take on flesh within your organization in terms of how you get managers to steward career development and whether or not this is tied to how they're evaluated?
Absolutely. I think that some of the approaches that we're taking, and just as Kristen said, we're definitely not like there. We haven't arrived, right? And I don't know if you ever arrive, because then we're going to change. Right. But I would definitely say that it's about involving management around the career development opportunities, meaning that they're a part of knowing that there is a manager cheat sheet, right? So that they can have the same language that's going on, so that when their particular teammate comes back, there is a common language that they're speaking. And so that brings some unity or some safeness, to the conversation. And then there's, the after meetings in order to engage the conversation again. I think the other thing that we might find really silly because we're adults, but I love to do in leadership development, and anytime I'm supporting somebody that I'm coaching around these kind of conversations, is that we practice it. We used to do this all the time when we were kids, but it seems like when we become adults, we think it's silly, but I don't think it's silly, which is if I'm going to have a conversation with a team member and I'm nervous about that conversation, and I've already started to have the conversation or I know it's coming, then if it's Kristen and I are going to have the conversation, I'm going to practice with somebody in that conversation that I trust. So as a leader, I'm practicing with another leader and saying, hey, Kristen, I have this team member and they want to have this career conversation. Can I practice this conversation with you? And it's not being robotic or practicing that I get all the words right. It's feeling more confident and comfortable so that the person who's receiving that communication can also feel confident and comfortable so that we can actually move and grow together instead of feeling really awkward and uncomfortable and not possibly moving anywhere, which doesn't make any situation any better.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I think the role play thing, like you said, it can be so awkward that we skip it, which is unfortunate because it's often some of the best practice we can get. So I want to move on to the next slide. I actually just got kicked out of WebEx, but I'm going to tee up the next question for you, Kristen, as I log back in. So what best practices would you share with us, and what have you tried that has not worked?
So we've rolled out the training course, Your Career, and I think that people have really responded well. I mean, we had a goal of getting, I want to say it was 1,000 people in we started in Q2 this year, by the end of the year, and we've already got upwards of 1,200. So we're doing really well in terms of people signing up and going for it. We've got about 25% of our target population has gone through, so we feel really good about that. And we've done like a kind of a pretty significant marketing campaign. We had the head of HR do like a public talk for all employees back in March to kind of kick it off. We have posted in all the different Slack channels that we know about. We've posted we have like TV screens in all of our cafeteria areas and all our offices. We've posted there. We have, in some of our offices, have like gone old school and have like posters, actual old school like paper posters. People respond to that. One of our facilitators travels to Austin, and she did like a milk and cookies event in Austin to talk about your career. So we've been trying to be just really creative and just one of the people kind of thing. Like, hey, I'm in this too. And that sort of simple language, human centered, has really, I think, helped. And the fact that it is so relevant for people and it's all about them, right? It's not like Athena expects you to do XYZ and here is a training on XYZ. It is Athena thinks you might benefit from this, why don't you give it a try, right? And that framing is even different and exciting for people. So they automatically walk in going, wow, the company is investing in me. It does not come across as the company needs me to do this, right? There's nothing compliance-y about it. So that, I think, is working really well for us. Those are some of the best practices. What have we tried that has not worked? Okay, so we had a very aggressive, ambitious, but doable plan to try to get, I forget the exact numbers, but all the people through these courses. And so we were offering I want to say like 3 or 4 sessions a week in all these different locations because we based it on all the numbers of eligible participants. And we learned pretty quickly that that was too much, and that slowing down the supply would actually increase the demand. I had to pull that out of my Economics 101 class from a couple of decades ago, but it works, turns out. So we had to really pump the brakes and slow down so we could fill the classes and have more meaningful conversations that way. We also tried to institute a career coaching thing. So if you went through the course, at the end, the facilitator would say, as a bonus, we have a coaching opportunity for you. All you have to do is, email this email address, and we'll set you up. And we had our HR enablement team, like an HR shared services team, monitoring the inbox and then allocating different coaches. And we brought someone in to train the coaches, and we were super excited about this. And I want to say we got 28 people that said, yeah, I'd like that. Which is not a good number. I mean, we're a company of 5,000, so 28 is not a great number. And so we tried that. That did not work. Can I point to exactly why? Not quite yet. We're still kind of digging into why that didn't work, but that did not work. Sure, there's other things that didn't work. I'll keep thinking on that when Marissa answers.
Okay, sounds good. Well, then, Marissa, over to you. What best practices would you share, and then what have you tried that didn't quite succeed?
Yeah, as a global company, I would say a best practice is go global. So we are going global with your career. So the best practice is sharing the content across the content, right? Across all the continents that we have locations. But in those sessions, each location, each participant, each group of people is different. So as any great facilitator would, we extend that time to meet the audience. So in some areas, we find that they're really interested in themselves, right? That part where it's all about themselves and getting feedback and, what they value and what they like and what they're passionate about. And then they get the feedback, and wow, that feedback is either really they've heard it for the first time, or it's something they want to spend more time in having conversation with. So we might extend that. And we allow that time to extend where the participants are needed. The other thing is that I have found that the best practice is back to listening to the people who need career development and what their needs are. And so one of the things that has come up is, hey, you said to build a community, right? Build a community of people around career development. But I don't know a mentor, or I don't know somebody who could be my cheerleader. Or so that's not necessarily a best practice yet, because we haven't placed those different requests all over the globe in our company. But I think it's the best practice of starting with content, sharing the awareness piece and the experience of diving into these conversations, is then hearing again what our next steps are. Some things that didn't work, Zach, is definitely not involving management right away. And involving management, I learned early on at the beginning and the end of it. So, even if it's a reach of an email, it still is important, if somebody can attend, because I found that the number of people who seem to either be moving into different positions, engaged in their own self-awareness about their career development, furthering, their community and building out their community, are the people in which it seems like, again, I don't have all the data, but my gut or in observation is that when management is involved, when it's not a one-stop shop of the workshop, when there's furthering those kind of conversations and exploring different things, people are becoming more involved.
That makes sense. Now, do you at SS&C Advent give your managers specific guidance as to how much time they should be spending on this process with their employees?
No, definitely not increments of time. I'm sure they would like that. As a technical company, I have found, coming from a nonprofit and educational background, the workforce here is very much more like they would like me to probably give them that. But I have the opposite approach. I'm more organic and like, well, I don't know what that might be. It might be 10 minutes for Zach, and then Kristen might need 20 minutes. I mean, I don't know. That just depends on the person and the richness of that conversation and, what information you have to share.
Right. And I think that makes sense. It's consistent, Kristen, with what you said as well, this idea of this isn't an add-on. This is your job. And so that is going to be a little bit gray. So I'm keeping an eye on the time. I want to keep moving. One thing, though, that came up earlier that I think would be interesting to our attendees today, Kristen, you were talking about mindset and adoption. And when you said adoption, in my mind, it's almost like, how do you make it vogue? How does Athena U become the cool thing to do? And then in addition to that, not just this is something that has some buzz and people want to be involved, but then also that I think all speaks to the accountability and the follow-up, this idea that you're saying we're giving you tools to go do this on your own. Are you going to do this on your own? So it's sort of this creating a buzz, creating just an environment of adoption. I know that's a tremendous challenge and you sort of teed it up that way. Is there anything you're doing to try to make it that, where this is the thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying. I mean, the bear that you're poking, Zach, is this sort of tension between one side, sort of human nature and meeting people where they are, and we know that people don't tend to do these things on their own, and so how great would it be if we had an automated follow-up and poked them and said, hey, don't forget to do this. Hey, did you do this? Hey, did you do this, right? and the other side of that coin saying, this is your career. Like, if you don't want to do it, that's on you. And holding people accountable to say, make your own decisions, right? And so we are admittedly struggling with that tension and where to fall. How do we support our employees without coddling them? How do we hold them accountable without, coming across as crass, right? So we're working on that, and I think we're using things like, this is your career, like it's your choice, and so somewhat of a guilt mechanism seems to work, I think, subliminally, but more just that truthfulness, that honesty of hey man, this is yours, or hey woman, this is yours. It's yours to take. We're doing all these things. We're teeing it up. And we want you to succeed, right? And having that sort of collectivist mentality around it, that it's yours to own, but we want to help you. I mean, we want you to succeed. We want you to thrive here. It is in all of our best interest if you are thriving. So that sort of messaging has been coming out, and we're trying to balance with it's on you.
Right.
That message.
No, that's right. Absolutely. No, that's so true. And Marissa, at SS&C Advent, how are you dancing with this tension that Kristen's describing?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same texture of tension. I would definitely say that, well, here's a great fact. 42% of our workforce has joined in the last 3 years.
Wow.
So the momentum of transition, the momentum of change, the momentum of, joining a company that is growing and global and you can contribute, which people love to contribute at a very early stage. There may not be that kind of momentum that we necessarily have to build in that same kind of way.
That makes sense. And I love the rally cry of it's your move. So let's keep going. Kristen, you were beginning to describe the impact you've seen so far. Is there anything you would add to what the picture you already painted?
Not maybe a little bit. I mean, we've got every cohort has attended from representative, which is our lowest cohort, all the way to vice president. We target, obviously, sort of the individual contributor bit, so that's our associate analyst level. Like I said before, we've got about 25% of that target population, and that's across all locations. We're rolling out remote Opportunities this quarter, we've rolled out in India last quarter, altered the content a little bit to make it relevant and make sense from a cultural perspective. But we've got about 25%, and that is far better than we expected. We have a whole other year to license this content, so we're kind of moving it in that way. In addition to just the training, like the actual Your Career training program, we are also working with managers in our general management courses to have more career conversations, and we've got, I don't have the numbers exactly for this year, but we've got probably about 400 people managers that have gone through training just in 2018, so that's really good. The Give, Get, Grow HR framework that we've rolled out continues to live and breathe in different ways, and everything that we're doing from an HR perspective behind the scenes ladders up to that sort of forward-facing, client-facing strategy of Give, Get, Grow. So we're seeing an impact. People are starting to talk the language. People are starting to get it. It feels still a little more anecdotal, like we have these conversations in the hallway where people say, I just came from this course, it's so great, or I just reread that blog about Give, Get, Grow, and it totally resonates, or I just had a great conversation with my direct report. So these things are happening, and I'm excited in a year to report back on a little bit more of a data-centric proof of the impact that we're having. Right now it feels a little more anecdotal.
Right, absolutely. And Marissa, what about you at SS&C Advent? What impact have you seen?
I think the easy answer there, of course, is what we want to see, which is movement, right? We want to see that in career development, people are moving into areas, whether that, and I didn't mention this earlier, but, contribution I have found, especially at SS&C Advent, is not always about the role in the organization. So if I'm a custom engineer, I don't necessarily have to contribute just in the areas of my role. I can contribute by being a part of the Workplace Advisor Program. I can be on the philanthropy team. The culture of the business also is the contribution. How do I contribute, to the help of somebody, So I think the first one there, the impact is movement. So we've seen movement of people moving into different roles, into leadership roles. Second and third would be conversations and interests, in the sense that you pass by the coffee container and you're overhearing conversations about career, or about, just like Kristen said, they've attended this great course called Your Career. So I think that Kristen was talking about, having company-wide kind of information shared about your career and putting up posters. Our approach is a little different in that sense, that I gravitated towards the teams that I already had trust and relationships with, and provided Your Career as a development opportunity for them first. And they were my branders. They were my voices in the company that did that. So those conversations and interests have continued to blossom because of those relationships that were created, the development that was provided, and then the continued interest in having conversations. For me, though, personally, the impact that it's had is that there is a shedding of silos that is happening. One of the things that Robert Rowley, our leader, has talked about is, how do we grow this business by shedding the silos that we have? How do we work outside of our team so it works collectively together, especially as a global company? So the impact that I think that I'm just most proud of, that doesn't necessarily, I'm sure I could find ways to make data say that, but it's the simplicity of the silos that are shed, because there's more people having conversation with each other about what's going on with them first, and then the business, and then, teams and success. That would be the one that I'm pumping my fist, if you could see me now, in the air about.
I can picture it. Thank you for that. And Kristen, you painted, I think, a pretty clear picture of the future goals of career development at Athena Health. So, Marissa, I'm going to throw this to you, and I'd love to get quickly to the Q&A since we have about 11 minutes left. At SS&C Advent, what does the future now look like? What's the future state, the goal that you're moving toward?
I want to work more with the social aspect of it. So we're a very social, we're social as human beings, right? But we're a very social company. And so I think that there is some type of like social community. I'm throwing around the idea of what that could look like. And now that I have great team members that have just joined us, I know that this is going to come to fruition. The other thing is, how do we communicate globally about your career? And so expanding that. And I'm rushing here just because of time and to give some time for Kristen and questions. But the last one is, I want to also, the future of career development is, again, building back to the base, the awareness. So I want to have some type of talent celebrations, like I have this vision of round tables and somebody sharing what their role is and what that talent is look like, the talents within that role, but the talents that they have outside of that role, so that we can start to really understand somebody's talents, but somebody's person, and then also somebody's journey. How did they get there? That has been really eye-opening for people to be able to listen to in your career.
Right, and so much learning emerges from those dialogues. Kristen, is there anything you'd like to add to the picture you painted for the future of career development at Athena Health?
Just that the culture is one where people are talking on the street about it, right? Go to Athena, you develop your career, you grow your career at Athena. That the buzz is not just inside the walls, but it's actually out in the market.
Love that. So thank you both so much. I'm going to quickly get this turned over to Kayla, and we will continue with the Q&A.
Yes, thank you so much, Zach, Marissa, and Kristen, for that great discussion. I think your vision for the future is great, and I think we'll have to have you back here next year for a career panel discussion 2.0, because there's still going to be a lot to discuss here in a year. So we do have a little bit less than 10 minutes left. So as a reminder, if you have a question for anyone on our panel, be sure to enter it into the chat or the Q&A module at this time. Zach has done a really good job of including them in the conversation, so we've been able to address most of them. But before we jump into the ones we haven't had a chance to dive into yet, I would like to remind you that the recording and slides from today will be emailed to the email address that you provided when you registered. So we will go ahead and go with this first question. I know there's a lot of folks on the call who maybe are in organizations who are just dipping their toes in the water. What are some common questions that they might hear that in their organization to help them know that career development is needed?
I'm happy to take that one.
Great.
Thanks, Marissa.
Yeah, I think some of the questions that I've been hearing are, I've been in this role for X amount of years and I love this company, but what's next for me? Another one that I hear is, we don't have conversations about career development in my one-on-one meetings. What can I do about that? I want to retain talent on my team, but I don't want to lose my talent either. I'm bored is a very simple one. I think I'm ready for leadership. How do I do that? And the last one is possibly like, what other opportunities are here for me? Where do I go next?
Yeah, so they're all great questions for us to be mindful of and listening to, especially, in conversations and around the water cooler as well. So the next question is, who owns career development in an organization? Is that an HR thing? Is that an L&D thing or a business thing?
Well, I have an opinion on that one, so unless you want to talk, Marissa, I'll jump in. I think the answer is yes. Who owns it? Yes. Everybody. The employee ultimately, I think, owns their own career. But when you think about when we think about career development as a strategy or as an initiative, we think about it from all the different lenses. And in fact, the way that we approached it this year, and will continue to next year, is that it was the binding glue that brought together the L&D department, the HRBPs, the employee relations folks, our compensation and benefits folks, so our total rewards folks. So career development became the glue and became the reason why we actually had to operate as a team. So sure, Athena, you owned the deployment of training, but HRBPs owned some more coaching things with their leaders and Comp and Ben owned sort of changing the performance management structure. So everybody had a role in it, but it all revolved around this initiative of increasing the career development opportunities in the company in order to increase retention.
So the next question is, I'll actually have you maybe both answer this one, but how do you develop career paths for your employees? And we touched a little bit on some of that, but just diving a little bit more into it.
I'll jump in again. You know, at Athena, part of the reason we wanted to go down this road with career development and career growth is because we had so many employees begging for a career path. There was sort of this expectation that as HR, the all-powerful HR would come down from above and bestow upon each employee their personalized path, as if that's how the world works. And so we really have been working to get people away from the word path because it implies that there is a next step and it is defined and cleared out for you. We're really trying to have people think a little bit more holistically about what matters to you. That's going to be a different journey than the person sitting in the next cube. And thinking about, I mean, you can use the Sheryl Sandberg jungle gym or the Deloitte's lattice or whatever you want to call it, but the career ladder, the career path are words that we are, you have to put a quarter in the swear jar every time you use them at Athena at this point because we're trying to move towards a more holistic view and a personalized approach.
Now
if you can just repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. Martha, did you want to add to that, or do you want me to just go into the next question? I know.
No, you can go ahead to the next question. That's fine.
Okay. And just as a reminder, if you do have a question, put that in the Q&A module and the chat field at this time. So the next person was asking if you could talk a little bit about how to implement career development at a small company level, especially in situations where maybe not everybody can be promoted. And also if there's any best practices for implementing this in a small organization where you know, the employees are too busy to work on training.
Well, that's a good question. I think that, you know, coming from education and nonprofit, I may have a little insight into lack of budgets, people, and, you know, resources sometimes. And now I'm in a very different area with SS&C Advent. I think that you do it the best you can. And what I mean by that is that I think that you have to first assess and look at, like, what does career development mean for the people that are sitting in that small unit, and what is their low-hanging fruit need? Because if you can start to feed that, then you can start to get the people to actually work on it. I think Kristen really addressed this of, you know, whose responsibility or role is it? The mindset shift of, like, hey, boss, you tell me where I'm going next, or hey, boss, you tell me I'm doing a good job, so therefore I'm going to move in these different roles. I think that in that small kind of setting with maybe a lack of training team or resources or budget, you know, we live in a world that is TED Talk savvy, LinkedIn resources. Like, there's just so many free kind of availability things out there. I think if you can find somebody who has a knack for supporting and helping other people, you have, or a couple of them, you have a team of people who can collectively work together, which to me is part of career development, which is that I'm growing and changing in different ways, and who knows how those particular talents or that involvement in that task is actually going to help support me possibly in a different role or even in the role that I'm at. That would be my answer.
Yeah, and I would add, just super quick, I know we're short on time, but for the person who's too busy for training, I mean, there's one angle that if your people are too busy to focus on their own career, like that's a big, huge problem. So a mindset shift is in order. However, I do recognize the tendency to have that. One of the things that we do at Athena is we have a motivation card deck. It's actually, we have a physical card deck and we have a virtual one where essentially you go through and just put into 3 categories the things that are really important to me, things that are not at all important to me, and things that are somewhat important to me. And ultimately you whittle it down to 3 or 5, and then that narrows down the conversation to have with your manager. It's something that takes 6 or 8 minutes, and just tees up a nice common conversation for both manager and employee, and we found a tremendous amount of success with that. And in a culture where not everybody can be promoted, I mean, we have that too, and that was part of this reason, just expanding the definition of what career growth means. So maybe it's just expanding your skills. Maybe it's taking on an interesting project. Maybe it's just having more responsibility. Maybe it's just more money with nothing else. Maybe it's new opportunities. Maybe it's managing other people. Maybe it's mentoring other people, coaching other people, whatever it is. Expanding what it means to grow your career, I think, can help get away from just I want to be the senior manager now of XYZ.
Thank you, and that was a great place for us to close. I know we do have a few more questions that came in. I am so sorry that we are not able to get to them live on the call, but I will be sure to pass them along to our panelists so that we can reach out and get those questions answered. So I do want to say thank you on behalf of GP Strategies and Blessing White, a division of GP Strategies, for joining us today, and thank you to our panelists and everyone who attended for your time and attention. We hope that you'll join us again for future webinars. A registration for our webinars, here I'll flip it to this last slide so you can see our website, is available at gpstrategies.com under webinars. We hope that you have a wonderful and productive rest of your week. Thank you, everyone.